But at the time, being that young, never even thought to ask, what a coach is asking or what are my coaches saying about me. I think probably because the assumption was, I thought I was a good teammate. I thought I was a good person. I knew my grades were right. There was never really a worry there that my coaches may say something that may work against me.
Joined now by the current director of student athlete development at UNC Charlotte. She also played basketball for the Kentucky Wildcats at one point, as well as the 49ers. Kameron Roach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. So we're going to talk about your career in just a couple of minutes, but let's go back. Let's go back to what sports looked like for you as a kid.
Okay. I grew up in the park. My dad, he was a director for a park in the Parks and Rec League or organization where I lived. So I was always in the gym. I would get picked up from school, go straight to the park because that's where my dad was, and then we would go there home. So I picked up a basketball at an early age, of course, just for fun at first, and then somebody realized I was pretty decent. Told my dad to sign me up for rec league basketball. I started playing rec league basketball around 8. Got better as time went on. Went and started playing AAU around 12. Played for a few South Carolina teams, and then eventually came to Charlotte to play travel ball up until my last year of playing, and then it took off from there. So.
Was it always basketball for you? I know you mentioned being in the gym because that's where your dad worked, but did you play other sports or was it just basketball?
I played other sports, like I would run track, to stay in shape. I started off before even playing basketball, running track. My dad ran track in college, so that was his sport. That was kind of the sport that he pushed us to kind of get into. Me and my brother didn't really take the track as much. My brother took the football, I took the basketball. Seriously, it was always going to be basketball, but I ran track to stay in shape and just to have fun. And at some point in high school, I also played tennis. And 1 year, I played volleyball in middle school. So I did play other sports, of course, just to have fun and experience some different sports.
So obviously your dad was actively involved with you because you mentioned he was a director at whatever the park you worked or he worked at. And then obviously he ran track, so he was pushing the track thing on you. Was there other mentors in your life though, or was your dad just a big influence for you athletically?
Oh man, that's a great question. I feel like I've had pretty good coaches during different parts of my playing experience. My dad definitely was a big part. He was a college athlete himself, so he was a competitor, and he was always, I think, not just pushing the sport itself, but he was pushing us to be all in and to really get something out of what comes with playing a sport at a high level. So those attributes sometimes we talk about that come with playing a sport. So he was really big on that. I had a really good coach once I came here and played travel ball in Charlotte. Her name's Barb Nelson. I give her a whole lot of credit. She just retired from coaching at Myers Park High School here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Um, she was a really big part of, I think, me hearing another voice and taking some steps towards what I said I want to do, and that was play in college. And she was able to give me the truth. It was genuine. It was in love, but it was tough at the time. And when I bought into what she was trying to tell me, I could see my game take off. So I would say my dad for sure. My AU coach here in Charlotte, Barb Nelson. Those are definitely the two main voices that had an impact on me.
You mentioned Coach Nelson being able to give you the truth. Like, how important is that? So I teach fourth grade, right? And I think sometimes I find it hard. Like, I have to be hard on these kids at some point, but I have to explain to them, like, here's the reality, and this is what life really looks like. And so, yes, you mentioned she came to you from a place of love, but there's also got to be like a real conversation. Like, hey, you need this. You need to do this in order for this to pay off.
Yes. So, I was her point guard. Point guard sometimes can be the toughest job on the floor, because you're supposed to be a floor general. You're the coach on the floor when the coach isn't around to say what needs to be said, and when the game gets um, the tempo is high, you have to control the floor. You have the ball in your hand a lot of the times, or the ball is at least starting in your hands a lot of the time. I think it was the small things, of course, basketball related. So, like, as a floor general, you have to be able to pass and distribute the ball. And I remember one day in practice, we were throwing some really bad passes, and she pointed me out, and she was saying, a bad pass is selfish, because if you're a shooter, you want that ball in your tee, or you want it a certain way. And if me as a point guard, and I'm saying I'm trying to set my teammates up, but I'm throwing them bad passes, that's equivalent to being selfish. And sometimes you're like, I'm not being selfish. I just do a bad pass. But what she was trying to get me to see is I have to be intentional about everything I'm doing, how I communicate, how I defend. She definitely pushed me to be a better defender. She pushed me to be in better shape. She told me, early on, my conditioning is gonna hurt me if I allow it. So I went back to the drawing board, got in better shape, and I could see the I can see the improvements I was able to make to my game, and that definitely helped me to, I think, get some more attention from college coaches. So ironically, both my dad and Coach Nelson were really big on hard truths, but I'm glad they were.
So you mentioned being a point guard. So, I grew up loving basketball, and the point guard, as you mentioned, like, you're the heart of the team. Like, you really are ultimately, whether you're the captain or not, you are the captain. Like, you run the floor. A lot of it goes through you. You have to be able to make the right passes, but you also have to control the flow of the game for yourself as well. Do you notice that, like, I believe that sports is a microcosm of life. So in your current role, which we will talk about again in just a little bit, but, like, do you notice that, like, you kind of gravitated towards the role that you're at in life is because you grew up being the point guard? So it's like you have that mindset of, like, you're thinking of others.
I mean, that's a great point. I never thought about it like that, but I definitely think it does translate. I like to definitely think I'm a person that thinks about others and thinks about the people around me. And when it comes down to even just like in my role now, meeting with other departments or whatever team I'm working with currently, I'm definitely always thinking about what is going to be the best solution for everybody in the group and not just myself. So I do think it translates. I think I also was kind of raised to be that person as well. I think my parents raised me to consider others and to be a team player. So it definitely translates.
At what point in growing up do you realize that, all right, you have the skill to play at beyond high school?
That is a great question. I feel like I was told from a pretty early age that I was pretty good. Um, I think my transition here to Charlotte, playing for a really good team, definitely made me realize there was a chance there. So I played for an organization, North Carolina Spartans. It was actually an organization started by Moose Muhammad, who played for the Panthers here. He had daughters that played basketball. He started an organization, which is why we're the Spartans. I believe he went to Michigan, which I later didn't put together till I didn't put together till later down the line. But we put together a really good team. Maya Caldwell, I'm not sure if you know who she is. She plays for Atlanta Dream right now. She went off to play at Georgia. Shannon, she went off to play at Georgia Tech. She's playing professional ball overseas now. I had a teammate, McKenna here. She played in Myers Park here in Charlotte, North Carolina. She went off to play at Princeton. My best friend, Kayla Hicklin, she went off to play at Charleston Southern, another Division I school. So we had a really good team of talented players that all had the opportunity to play at the next level. And I think we realized that once that team was put together. Also played with some other players that went off and played Division One off of that team. And it was only about 8 or 9 of us, and we weren't a Nike team. We were a grassroots team. We were just really good. We had a great coach. We were all talented, and I think once we got together after a while, we looked around. We were like, you're pretty good, and you're pretty good. So we may have a pretty good chance here going and playing the next level. So I think around the probably I would say 8th grade, 9th grade year for myself, I started to realize, okay, this is something I can take to the next level. And then of course you have people telling you, but I think the realization came when I looked around and the caliber of talent I was playing with. and being considered good still on this team, I was like, okay, I think I could do this.
So you mentioned, you weren't a Nike team, you were on a grassroots team. So take Musa Muhammad out of it for a second, other than the fact that he's a Panther, legend. Do you find something in that, like being able to, you guys put together a great team and you were able to show all your talent and do all this, even though you didn't have the spotlight on you? There wasn't necessarily the big money behind you. It wasn't like, because I feel like now there's like, you see everybody, there's a million AAU teams and it's, oh, this is LeBron's team that he's involved with, or this is the Nike team, or this is the, I'm losing the thing right now, but the one in Tampa, that player development thing in Tampa. Like there's all these different leagues. So do you find something like more of a climb in the fact that you weren't under the spotlight?
That's a great question. I think, like you said, there's so many teams now. Anybody can play. You can get a kid out there who can't even make his middle school, high school team that can play on the AE team if he just shows up to practice or pay his dues, pay his or her dues. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that per se. I think it just makes AAU now probably even a little bit watered down than it was back then. I will say back then we only had one league on the women's side, so that was the Nike league. Now, of course, you have Under Armour, you have Adidas, um, you have what else? You have other leagues. You have Puma, you have New Balance. They all have leagues now, and nothing wrong with that. Uh, I think it helps for the kids that wouldn't have been seen if they didn't have those leagues to play in. However, there are also a bunch of other grassroots teams nowadays. Like I said, you can start a team from scratch. Anybody can play. Uh, that's what waters it down. Um, the good thing about being a grassroots team back then was there were other really good grassroots teams that you had to make. So even just here in Charlotte, you have like Lady Attack. That's a really good grassroots organization. They really do a great job of developing their players over time, and their players go to school, and they don't have to be a part of a league to do that. Um, I could go down the line. You had the Lady Monarchs who have been around for a long time. They've had some really good players come through that league. I mean, we're talking about over 20 years. And they're a grassroots team still, I believe. I think they might have joined either Puma or New Balance within the last 2 years. But even without that, they would have been okay because I think of how that organization is set up. Like they're really trying to develop players, and they do a good job of developing players and putting them in colleges. Back then, being a grassroots team, you had actually even more eyes on you because the grassroots teams back then were pretty talented. You didn't have to be a Nike team back then to go to school. You really still don't have to be. I mean, you look at Sarah Strong at UConn. She played for a team right here out of North Carolina. She didn't need to play for a Nike EYBL team to go to UConn because she was good and she knew how to play the game, and that's really what it's about. It's not about whatever league you play for. It's not about what jersey you wear on your where you wear what names on the front of your jersey. It's not about that. It's can you play the game? Can you play it the right way? And can you play at the next level? And coaches can see that when they finally do watch you play, they can see that. They can see the first time they watch you play. Even if you might have 5 turnovers, you might go 8 for 10, but or 8 for 20. If you can play, coaches will recognize that, and they'll come back to watch you again. They'll see you watch. They'll watch you grow over time. So there was no problem back then. I actually loved playing for a grassroots team and playing for other grassroots teams. And then back then, sometimes EYBL teams used to come to tournaments where they can play other grassroots teams, and we took that as a challenge because it was always said like the EYBL teams are they're supposed to be more talented. They're supposed to be better. And so anytime we had a chance to show that that's not true, we took the opportunity. And like I said, we had a really tough team, mentally tough team as well. We took on any challenge that came our way, and we had a great coach that we knew we could go into battle with, and she was gonna lead us down the right path.
Well, and you kind of hit it on the head. The point I was getting at too is like it doesn't matter what team you play for. Like you don't need to have the most expensive track shoes. You don't need to have the most expensive bat. You don't have. It's the player. If you can play, they're going to find you. Especially in 2025. I mean, you have so much social media: Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, everything. I mean, you could be exposed. You don't have to live in Alabama for Nick Saban to come see you in football. You don't need to be in wherever, for somebody to come see you. You get exposed. So now we're in high school. We're traveling through for you. You realize you're pretty good at basketball. What does the goal become for you? Like, what do you see your life playing out as? What do you want to do?
Of course, it's like the next person. I was like, I want to go to the league. I want to go off and play SEC basketball and be the best and go off to the league and go from there.
So when you mentioned SEC basketball, because we're going to get to your Wildcat journey right here. So you end up going to Kentucky. What was it? What were the offers out there? And did you want to play SEC basketball originally? Like, was that your main goal? Like, I want to get here.
Most definitely. I grew up like 15 minutes down the road from South Carolina, University of South Carolina. I can remember, being 10 years old, and me and my parents, we could pull up to the game at that time, 10 minutes or 15 minutes before the game started, and get a great seat. I also grew up going to that team camp with my high school, and being on that campus a good bit. So I watched a lot of SEC basketball going to those games, and I kind of fell in love with it. And I said, okay, I want to play SEC basketball. It seemed like to be at the time, the highest level basketball for women's college basketball.
So when you get to college, I try to tell kids this all the time, because I always hear kids like, oh, I'm going to play baseball professionally. I'm going to do this professionally, whatever. You might have been being recruited out of high school. You might have been the best on your high school team. I mean, you might have been the second best on your high school team. Either way, you're in the top. But when you get to Kentucky, everybody on that team was the best on their high school team.
Most definitely.
And so it's like, so what did you take away from that moment? Like, what do you learn from that? I was watching a couple interviews that people were talking about you when you transferred from Kentucky to Charlotte, and they were talking about how you contributed off the bench, So like, when I hear that, that means like, all right, you're not a starter. But what I guess my point is you're still on the team, and you're still a big role player, and you're still a major part of that team. So like, what were your takeaways from that time being in Kentucky?
I think with maturity, I realized you can also make an impact, not just on the court. You can make an impact off the court. And so I think where I honed into was just trying to be a good teammate, be encouraging, and when my number was called, to be ready. Also, sometimes what that looks like is, in practice, I will be on the scout team, and I will be one of the players on the scout team, and they'll tell me, okay, we're playing Arkansas this week. This player loves to shoot the three. They like to go left. This is what we need you to do as a player on the scout team, and taking that role seriously, and having fun with it, honestly, as well. Also, just being a good teammate off the court. If a teammate needs a ride, or a teammate, kind of needs to sit down and talk to somebody, like, hey, let's go get something to eat. Let me cook dinner for a couple of my teammates having a tough week. Let me check on so-and-so who just might have had a pretty tough game, and kind of being hard on themselves on the bench, trying to bring energy, being encouraging, talking to my teammates when they come off the floor, picking my coach's brain, when I'm on the sideline. So it looks really different. I think, growing up, we only see what we see on the court. And everybody wants to be that person to score 20 and get 10 rebounds and 11 assists. And what the realization is, when you get to that level, is everybody can't do that. And so you have to do what you can do and try to master that. And then also just do what you can do as well off the court. Now, anybody can do the off the court stuff. You don't have to play 20, 30 minutes to be a good teammate. You don't have to play 20, 30 minutes to lend a helping hand or be there for the next person.
So you mentioned the being a good teammate and the off the court stuff. So I had a coach tell me a couple of weeks ago that he's never had a coach, when they're recruiting, ever ask about a player's skill. Like, they never ask how good you are at football, or how good you are at basketball, how good you are at track. Like, they never, because they could see that in the video. They always ask about your character, or what you are as a person. So let's go back a little bit to your recruiting process when you were being recruited. Have you talked to people like afterwards about just what was being asked about you? Like, what was like when a coach comes and recruits you, what do they want to know about Kameron Roach?
That's a great question. I mean, I did commit young. I probably committed around 15 years old. Looking back on it, probably wish I would have waited a little bit. At the same time, I did tear my ACL not long after committing. So it's kind of a what if situation. But at the time, being that young, never even thought to ask, what a coach is asking or what are my coaches saying about me. I think probably because the assumption was, I thought I was a good teammate. I thought I was a good person. I knew my grades were right. There was never really a worry there that my coaches may say something that may work against me because of the kid that I was at the time.
So your Kentucky career comes to an end. You end up transferring to Charlotte now. Why do you transfer to Charlotte? I mean, I know this, the easy thing is you're from South Carolina, so that's the easy answer, but why Charlotte and then how does that lead into the current role that you're in?
Oh man, that's a great question as well. I mean, like I say, I play travel ball here in Charlotte. Charlotte has always been a second home. I spent a lot of time here as a kid. Um, I wanted to move closer to home, and honestly, I had called my coach up, Coach Nelson, and just talk with her and pick their brain and say, "Hey, coach, I have this medical register year, I have this COVID year, not quite ready to get out there yet. Don't know what it looks like for me, but I do know I would like a chance at potentially, getting my master's degree at a good university or a university that is going to take care of me and I can still go and play." And the first name she came up with was Charlotte. And honestly, after she said that name, I nothing else sounded right. Nothing else sounded good. And so I said, okay, Charlotte. And I mean, from what she told me, they jumped at the opportunity as well. And I mean, no, I didn't even contemplate or consider any other school after Charlotte. And I think that's a good thing. I think because of where it's led me. I'm a faith based person, and I think it happened how it was supposed to happen. Each step of the way, no matter whether I agree with or it's sat well with me. Everything's gonna happen how it's supposed to happen. Once you said Charlotte, nothing else even made sense.
So you're the director of student athlete development at UNC Charlotte now. So for somebody who doesn't know what that role does, what are you in charge of, or what do you do on the daily?
Career development, community service, professional leadership development, personal development, and then a little bit of the fun stuff. So like the welcome back we do every year with all the student athletes and coaches and staff. We have an end of the year awards banquet. We call it Normies. It's a play on. Everybody kind of does a play on ESPYS. Um, we have a winter social, which is like another prom for them to get out and mingle and meet other athletes from other sports. So uh, if I had to put it all in a few words, I would say those things.
What led you to that role? Like why did you want to be involved with athletic development, and then obviously with the students?
Again, I am a faith based person, and honestly, coming out, I wanted to kind of pursue marketing more than anything, and telling the stories of the athletes, and getting to see the other side of whatever sport they play, seeing them outside of that. But I knew I wanted to have an impact, and I thought marketing was going to be my impact. But how it worked out, so my sports supervisor when I played here at Charlotte, I reached out to her and said, "Hey, I want a career in sports. How can I get started, or what can you do to maybe help me out a little bit?" She said, "Well, come intern with me." We sat down, had a call. She told me the expectations. I said, "I think I can meet those expectations." Started interning with her in 2023. My position became open last year, and I started in November. Now, I say I'm a faith based person. I didn't originally uh, apply for that job off bat. I didn't think I had enough experience at the time. I was only about a year and a half in my internship. I think you get up to 2 years. I was a little nervous about it. I thought about it. It was in the back of my mind, but I said, there's definitely more qualified people for this job. And some couple things happened, and I actually, about time I got the courage to say anything to anybody, uh, my current supervisor, when I first started off at this job, she said, two people actually came up to me and said that you would be great for the job. And so that kind of let me know, okay, you kind of you're freaking out for nothing. You can do this job. Anybody that we have gotten on this job would have had to have would have had to have learned, and you actually probably know more than any candidate coming from the outside because you went to school here, you interning here, you know a lot of information, you've done a lot at this point. So I ended up starting in November, um, and Now being in the role, especially, I do feel like this was where I was supposed to be all along. I feel super fortunate to do this job. I get an opportunity to kind of have one of the more fun jobs in athletics right about now. I get to have relationships with the student athletes. I get to talk to them on just a personal level. I get to know them outside of their sport, and they get to know that we care about them outside of their sport. I get to watch them progress as individuals in their career, get to go off and watch them, get married and, come back and tell me about their experiences at their first job or their new job. Um, I get to help them meet goals, community service wise and career development wise, and just watch them progress. I absolutely love doing what I do, and I hope I get to do it for a long time. So I think I'm supposed to be here. I think I didn't plan to be here, which is even better. I think God had a plan for me, and I hope to stay here for a while.
You mentioned the relationships you get to build with the players. They're student athletes. So there's an emphasis on the word student, obviously, and there's also an emphasis on the word athlete. When you put them together, there's a spotlight on them. How much does that conversation come up about how important it is that you are a student athlete? So, yes, it's not your brand first, it's Charlotte, but it's also your brand of like, how do people, receive you?
Oh, all the time. I mean, that's pretty much my entire job is to allow them to see that there is life after sports, even during sports. I even try to share success stories of players that are now, but they still dedicate themselves to giving back. We have Brent Bronico here, Charlotte FC. He has an organization. He allows some of my student athletes to come back and volunteer at his events. You have Larry, who played football here, and he was the first ever drafted player out of Charlotte, and he just got nominated this past year for Walter Payton Man of the Year for his dedication to giving back and feeding into the next generation of people. So that's literally my whole entire job. I get to go away from sports altogether and say there's life after sports, there's life during sports. You have identity outside of your sport, and what does that look like if you didn't have your sport? What's not necessarily Plan B, but what else are you passionate about, and then what can you see yourself doing when the ball stops bouncing or the clock stops.
Is it easy for the students, like I'll say kids because they're kids and equivalent to you because they're new to the program? Is it easy for them to approach you? And I don't mean like you, like I don't mean your personality. I don't mean like you being an approachable person. Or is it easy for them to approach you, or do some of them not get the idea that there is a world after sports? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for some of them, probably not because they can't imagine a world without the sport that they
Yeah.
play, and they're not thinking that far in advance. For some, it is easy for them to approach me because they're like, I need to know what I'm doing next. You have two different types of people. They're like, I don't want to think about what's next, or you have, I need to know what's next. I need to be prepared when I leave here. I don't want to be out looking crazy when it's time to graduate, and I don't have anything, or I haven't done anything that speaks for me and who I am. So you have two different types of people, and I definitely try to make myself approachable. This year was definitely about building relationships so that I can be approachable, and there are players that can vouch for me going into this next year for new players like freshmen and transfers. Um, right now, I'm over at football because that's where I started when I was interning with my supervisor, and now I have my role. And I've been through the year. I'll be moving back over here in the academic center, where most of the student athletes come to do quiet study or meet with their academic advisor, so they can see my face. And the more they see my face, they can get more comfortable with me and coming to me and saying, "Hey, like can you help me with this, or can you lead me in the right direction?"
All right, let's go a little rapid fire. What's your favorite sports movie?
Oh man, just because it's the only one I can think of, I'm gonna say Coach Carter.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. If you could coach any professional sports team, which team would it be and why?
Like within basketball.
It could be. It doesn't have to be basketball. It could be whatever you want it to be.
Oh man. maybe a
Okay.
pro team, WNBA team, just because they're talented and that's a task itself. But I wouldn't have to worry about talent.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a go-to quote or like a mantra or anything that you live by?
Oh man, it's so many of them. I wish I knew I was doing rapid fire. I feel like I'm not prepared.
You're good. You're good.
Uh, mm,
We can skip that one. You're fine.
okay.
Who's the most inspiring athlete to you?
I'm gonna say LeBron James. He's always been my favorite player. He was the first player I saw and kind of fell in love with. The reason why I wore 23. First pair of basketball shoes. I've watched him since he was younger. I was younger. I love him. I love who he is off the court as well. I think that's definitely what's made me fall in love with him. In my older age, the way he gives back, the way he's a family guy. Yeah, LeBron.
What pregame rituals did you have?
I like listening to music. Of course, I'm gonna say a prayer. But I love to listen to music, kind of get hype. Um, yeah, that's about it.
All right. So now that you are where you're at UNC Charlotte, what's the goal for you? Like, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Man, that's a great question. Like I said, I hope I still am having some type of impact on student athletes in some way, shape, or form of them figuring out what life looks like without their sport and helping them to know that they have an identity outside of whatever sport they play at any level, even if that's pro. Because you'll find that pro players also have sometimes an identity crisis once they're done their sport. A lot of times, a lot of players retire early. There's not LeBron James all the time. You don't play till you're 40, and even LeBron has to figure out what's going to be next for him. If he wants to continue to be active in the sports world. So I do hope I still have an impact somewhat on any type of player, professional, college, and letting them know there's identity outside of their sport.
The kids that you deal with every day, what do you want them to take away from you? Like, what's the goal that if you ran into them, let's say you run into them 5 years down the road, what do you want them to remember about you?
That I'm always going to be a helping hand. Whether they graduated 5 or 10 years, they can always come back, call me if they need anything, and I will do my best to help them out the best way I can.